Go.
And I am so sorry for the technical difficulties. It seems like Streamer wanted to cock block me. What's up with that? But
I don't know.
like I said, so for the third time, can you please tell my audience what type of content that you make?
Yes, I make all kinds of content with all kinds of people. I make content with skinny people, chubby people. I make content with make boy girl content, girl content. I make fisting content. I make solo content. I do masturbation. I do. I don't know. Just gonna have to check out my page and find out.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
What's better to perform, blowjob or hand job?
Well, personally, I would have to go with blowjob. Um, I really, I'm not very confident in my hand job abilities. I feel like I just have a better skill with my blowjob abilities.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
You know, so will you be attending any of the conventions this upcoming convention season?
Yes, I should be attending Exotica, New Jersey. I've been for the last 2 years with a friend of mine who's actually appears in one of my Pornhub videos, my Chubby Daddy video, is one of my most popular videos. So hopefully we'll be making another one this coming year as well. So you'll be looking forward to that. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to some of the conventions coming up.
Awesome. Like I was saying before we start going live, I will be at Exotica, Jersey, as well as DC. I'm contemplating Miami, but I don't think I'm going to get a good deal on the flight, and I'm not a fan of Florida this time of year.
No, no, I wouldn't go this time of year either.
Way too wet,
Yeah.
and not the good kind of wet.
No, not the good kind of wet. I mean, it may be wet down there, but it's not going to be, you know,
Yeah,
wet
I
down
went
there.
to Florida last May, and I was like, I'll never come to the state between May and September ever again.
Oh,
It was just I was miserable.
absolutely. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So, what are your opinions on some of all this new age verification laws that I'm reading about from Utah and Louisiana and Colorado and all these other states that are
Yeah.
jumping on this anti-sex work, anti-porn bullshit.
Yeah, I've had a couple of followers affected by that as well. A couple of my followers have told me, that they can't view my Pornhub page because they get blocked for age verification. And to be completely honest, while I'm going to maybe have a little bit of an unpopular opinion here,
Okay.
while I think that there should be some sort of age verification for, say, sites like Twitter, where there's minors constantly all over the place, and there's adult content on Twitter. There's to have somebody ask you for a copy of your driver's license or a copy of your ID to view pornography online. Um, that's quite an infringement, I think, because then you don't know where that ID is being stored, how they're tracing your identity, especially in states where, like Utah, it's a very religious state. That doesn't necessarily mean that people aren't going to watch porn, but they're going to be very quiet about it.
Yeah, so I
Um,
don't think people in Utah are going to be jumping up and down from the hills, being, I jerk off the donkey shows. I just watched two girls disting like fucking a cow. Yay!
right,
Fuck
right.
Mormons.
Right. Now, you know, in other states, they may be a little bit more vocal about watching pornography because it may be a little bit more of a liberal state, but um, they're not going to shout it from the rooftops that they're watching Pornhub. But it's certainly not. They're not going to be watching it, you know, or talking about watching it in Utah.
Or they're not going to be
Um,
like walk, building like an entrance to the back cave, going behind the clock, making sure the doors are closed, three separate
right.
computers there.
Now, some of the laws that I'm unfamiliar with, how are they going to verify that these IDs are legitimate?
That's what I
Um,
was thinking. In today's day and age, you can fake anything, and even with you can, any kid who's like 17, 18, trust me, they know 15, 16, 17 can hack into anything these days.
exactly. Exactly. Now, like when you go to the store and you buy alcohol, there's a barcode on the back of your ID where they actually scan it or they put it through a scanner. And that's because it's actually encoded in your license. But if you're just submitting a picture of it digitally through the internet, that can be photoshopped, that can be digitally altered as well. There's any way that can be, you know, your appearance can be altered to make it look like the ID as well. So I don't know how they're going to be able to prove that these IDs belong to the person that's viewing the content either. I remember a friend of a friend of a friend when I was 16 borrowed their parents' credit card to look at, you know, AOL porn back in the, you know, early 2000s, you know, and they got away with it because they needed age verification.
Yes, even in the pre-internet days,
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
always if underage people want to do anything that they're being told by the adults not to do, they will find a way. And
Hmm.
I noticed this even at the liquor store when I go in. There's this group of teenagers who I eventually had to yell at because every time they're like, "Yo, blind Adam," because I'm happy that they watch out for me that I don't get hit by a car or something when crossing the street. Very grateful. But can you do
Hmm.
us a favor? And I know what they're just about to ask, and they're like, can you buy us a case of beer?" And I'm like, I basically said, "Hey, if you want to pay my fucking," I said, "look at my ass." Says, "Do I look like I have an asshole meant for jail?
Exactly.
If I buy you
Right?
alcohol, and got, when you guys are 21, I will buy you guys your first legal bill. Until there, just leave me alone."
Exactly. So when it comes to pornography in the adult industry, yeah, teenagers are gonna get their hands on it one way or another. Do I think the government should be enacting laws to get people's licenses online? No. But in a way, I think there should be a little bit more um, ways for content like I say unregulated websites like Twitter or even Tumblr, where content is posted uncensored and minors are allowed.
What do you do though? What do
There's
you
a
think
fine
is
line
worse?
with that.
Yeah, what do you think is worse, Twitter or Tumblr?
Worse, as
As
in,
far as uncensored clips making it online through them, what do you think is like the worst offender out of both?
oh, Twitter.
So that's what I thought too.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tumblr used to be that alt lifestyle type go to before they banned the adult content, and then all the Tumblr refugees went to Twitter. Um, So now it's become Tumblr porn. I see it all the time, and unfortunately, I'm guilty of it too. You know, I put my
We all
content on Twitter, but you know, I screen my followers and make sure that they have their ages on their bios. I make sure that the people that I interact with verify that they, you know, give me their ages. I don't sell to any content to people who are underage. So, in fact, you know, all my content is sold through either OnlyFans or uploaded to Pornhub. So it's, you know, you have to be verified on Pornhub or to upload on anyway,
yeah.
and you have to be over 18 to join OnlyFans to
Yeah.
begin with. So.
That's if they can identify your ID because I got rejected twice because your ID is too blurry.
Yeah, exactly. They're very strict about your ID and who you are, and that your ID matches your face and your face matches your online presence. They ask you for your Instagram, your Twitter, your Facebook, your, you know, anything that can prove you are who you are.
Yeah. So who do you think gets more ass, Batman or Superman?
Batman. I say that because I'm a huge Catwoman fan.
Okay.
And as a Catwoman fan, she is a total dominatrix. And Batman is, he's, personally, I think he's a switch. So
Wait, this is interesting. Okay, explain. Go forever.
he's a dom in the streets, right?
Hmm.
But he's a sub with Catwoman.
Okay.
All right. And when she cracks her whip, he turns into a little puppy dog with her.
Okay.
So
Amazon
I
style.
think I think Batman gets more ass than Superman.
All right. Do you have a favorite interpretation of Catwoman?
Um I really enjoyed Joelle Jones.
Oh wow.
Her her artistry is just phenomenal. The series that I started reading was right after the Batman Catwoman wedding.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was pretty much Joelle Jones when she started that Catwoman run. That was pretty much my favorite.
My favorite era is the Adam Hughes run.
Okay, Adam Hughes was very good too. Yes,
Yeah.
he's probably my second favorite.
And right now, because I just got a nice collection of hardcovers in, I am enjoying some Golden Age Catwoman at the moment.
Excellent,
You know,
excellent
it's nice to
choice.
see how Bill Finger and Bob Kane, uh,
Hmm.
sorry Athena, uh, you know, uh, really originated the character, and what they got away with in the 40s and 50s. I was like, wow, they were making the Catwoman a sex symbol, right from
Hmm.
the beginning.
Yeah, and they
And,
gave her a
and then
lot of
of course
empowerment.
Julie Newmar. I met her a couple years back, and uh, she was just like really sweet, and even in her 80s,
Hmm.
she's a gilf.
Oh yes, oh yes. Smash or pass? Absolute smash.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
What advice would you give for newcomers?
Um, don't expect to make a lot of money right away. It takes a lot of patience. You have to establish your core clientele right away. You know, not right away. It takes a while. Um, you know, you have to get your subscribers that are going to stay with you. Um, you'll get subscribers that'll come and go, but don't get frustrated. Um, Frustration, I think, will pretty much lead to comparison and um, depression and anxiety and make you think that, oh, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? You know what? If it's in your heart, do whatever was in your heart.
That makes
Um,
sense.
yeah. So one of the big things when I first started doing this was because of my disability that conventional jobs I could never fit the mold. When I started doing sex work, it allowed me to make my own schedule. It allowed me to use my customer service skills that I've acquired over the years. It allowed me to use my skills and abilities as well as my sexuality that I'm comfortable with, and create a business that is entirely mine. And with it, I've established something that I can keep going with, and that is in my heart. And when people say, "Oh, well, why don't you do this business or why don't you do that business?" and I say, "Well, what for? I'm already doing that. I'm already making my own schedule. I already have clients. I already, have this going for me. So why would I want to switch careers?"
Exactly. Uh, so, what advice would you give to, uh, a male producer wanting to book you for the first time?
Um,
They look at some of your content, they go, "Ooh, I have something in mind. Maybe she would be perfect for it."
well, I would first say when you approach me for booking me, definitely learn my style. I really don't like being asked over and over again, what are you into? What do you
Mhm.
do? What kind of things what kind of videos do you produce? Because at that
Yeah,
point, you should already know, you should already see what I've done. If you have something in mind that you'd like me to do, but and it's similar to what I've already done, then we can work together. Then it'll click. Um, I would like to have somebody who's very straightforward with me, very direct. Um, you know, I have a rate. I would like, this is what, when, where, how, and why.
yeah, which is all very basic, simple things. To me, making content is just one level up from. Uh, I was a. If anyone wants, I should write a book on all the ethics of paying for sex because I
Hmm.
mastered it from the age of 18 to now. I've learned the hard way of what to do, what not to do, uh, the ethics of it.
Hmm.
And I always say sex workers are angels from God doing the Lord's work, bringing joy to the
Thank
joyless
you.
and hope to the hopeless.
Well, thank you for that, Adam. I really appreciate that that you think about sex workers in that light because um, not a lot of people do.
And it goes
And
back to when I was hospitalized for severe depression at the age of 18, and They put me in the depression/drug rehab part of the psychiatric hospital.
Mhm.
And one of the first persons who I befriended was, I guess now we would call them a streetwalker. They
Okay.
were, you know, and she treated me like a brother, and we became the best of friends. And that just showed me that hey, they're people too. Uh, they provide a service, and they really provide a service for. If it wasn't for prostitutes and strippers, I would not know how to talk to girls in the civilian world either.
Well, that's good.
They taught me manners. If you ever want to learn manners about females, get kicked in the balls by someone like 6 times.
Exactly. And it's funny that you bring that up too about talking to girls and in this as a civilian too, not speaking to a sex worker, but just speaking to a woman, as a date or just as a man to a woman with respect. I've been talking to some people on a swingers website for not necessarily dating, but just for friends, for friends in the lifestyle. And a lot of the men that I have been talking to, I'm used to getting the DMs with the dick pics. I'm used to the rude people that really just get the immediate block. But some of these people, if you don't do what they want you to do, they get angry, they get violent. um I was told by one person that if I didn't come to a three-way, if I didn't meet them for a three-way, he was going to call the cops on me. He called
Oh
me a
wow,
prostitute.
that's just rude.
Right. And I mean, he wasn't a client. There was no talk about exchanging money or anything like that. So there was no reason for him to call me a prostitute at all. It was just, because I was refusing his sexual advances.
Yeah.
And so, it was after that that I kind of realized even the clients that don't book me have been more respectful to me than people who just want to hook up.
Oh yeah. Uh,
So
where can my audience find you online?
they can find me on Twitter. They can find me on Instagram. Both my handles are Amethyst Pearl X. That's AMETHYST. Amethyst Pearl X.
That's
And
awesome.
that's yep. And also on Pornhub as well under Amethyst Pearl.
Sweet. Well, I want to thank you for sharing some of your time.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Adam.
And I definitely have something that I now that I know that you're a Catwoman fan that I know that you would be perfect for.
Really?
Yes, I will tell you I'll message you off air because I don't want to talk about this on air yet.
Okay, perfect.
All right, cool. We'll be in touch with this. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you, Adam. Bye bye.
Bye bye. There's Amethyst Pearl. Please go check her out. Once again, I apologize for the technical difficulties and some of the stuttering. I'm like Billy Ray Dudley back in the ECW days, with a little bit of pausing and stuttering, which I'm working on all the time. Uh, you know, the speech impediment's gotten better over the last 2 years, but still needs a little bit of work. Uh, if JV that are the second guest of the night ever show up?
No, he did not. Oh, actually, he is here.
All right, wow. All right, cool. So let's bring him in the room.
I think he's having some cam issues, but
What's that?
oh,
No,
he's here.
my wife keeps the camera covered. I'd forgotten about that.
It's all
Oh, not
good.
a problem.
Sorry for running late. Mixed up time zones.
I apologize for the lateness, and we will welcome you to the show. Everyone, our second guest of the evening. He is an author and a psychiatrist. He's written a new book called The Psychiatry of Spider-Man. Dr. Travis, how do I pronounce your last name? Probably is it Langley?
Langley. I'm a psychologist, so it's Spider-Man psychology. But it's Dr. Travis Langley, Langley.
I apologize for butchering your name. I am sight impaired, and I use adaptive technology to read my emails, so it was pronouncing it all weird. So I do apologize.
No problem. How are you doing this evening?
Cool. So how did this book come about?
Well, I had written a book on the psychology of Batman a long time ago. And after it did well, it led to other books. And I'd wanted to do this book on Spider-Man for a long time. Spider-Man has been called the poster child for the neurotic superhero by comic book writer John Ostrander and others, and wanted to explore that and wanted to make the point that calling him the poster child for the neurotic superhero essentially boils down to calling him the poster child for the human superhero. This character's popularity it has to do with how relatable he is to so many people. As you consider which are the most famous superheroes in the world: Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man, three orphan boys. But two of them, one is a billionaire, and one is an
The other
alien
one
who
is a
just has
poor
Kryptonian
kid from
technology.
Queens.
What?
I said the other one is a poor kid from Queens.
And Peter Parker is a poor kid from Queens who has to worry about paying his rent and screwing up in relationships in ways that Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent don't have to worry about.
Yeah. So, I was reading, the bullet points of the book, and one of the things I really wanted to ask is, what do you think the creation of Spider-Man reflects on the psychological profile of his creators?
Well, of course, I tend to avoid analyzing real human beings too much.
Okay.
But from the things they've told us themselves, we know that Steve Ditko was this nerdy, uncertain person. And some of those things are manifested in the way he illustrated Spider-Man and the way, he fleshed out the stories in the beginning. Stan Lee's uncertainties in his own background, his some of his own losses are manifest through that character of Peter Parker. I once asked Stan why so many of his superheroes were orphans, and he thought about it for a moment. He just said, "I didn't really think about it." One time I was doing a panel with Brian Michael Bendis, who wrote more Spider-Man stories than anybody else, even Dan Slott. And Bendis brought this up about how Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman, something they have in common is that they're all orphans. And he felt that some of that resonated through the way Stan was writing the character. And I mentioned about how Stan had told me he just didn't think about it. What Bendis said was, when Stan says, I just didn't think about it, that Bendis felt that that's when the real truth came through. Those were the things that reflected some of the things that were the deepest and most meaningful to Stan, even if he didn't want to say it directly that way.
Interesting. I know one of the topics that the book covers is why Peter Parker didn't stop the burglar. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, he was an irritated young individual who had been. He felt put upon. He felt bullied, and he's a kid. And he had just been mistreated by the people who owed him money. And while in the comic book, there was no direct cause and relationship between them mistreating him and that with the burglar running away. I know in the movie, they made it that the burglar was robbing the people who had just mistreated him. In the comic book, it's not as directly connected in that. And he just didn't feel like it. And that was a hard lesson, learning. It's like, don't just be the bystander. As I step up and do the right thing, even when you don't feel like it. And that has repeatedly motivated him over the years. Anytime he has quit being Spider-Man or felt like, let's leave it to the police, it rings back. It's like, yeah, but once upon a time, I didn't step in and something happened, and I can't let that happen to anybody else.
Wow, that is a lot of. I always figure that Spider-Man is the one character that always has the guilt complex.
Oh, he's not just the one, but it is. He's the first superhero for whom that was an overwhelming motivation. Yes, and that's inherent to his personality. It's something in him. So one of the things in speculating in the book is, well, how does somebody become that ready to feel guilty and let it weigh on him perpetually? What are the upgrading? What kind of values or uncertainties as he was growing up made him that ready to feel guilty? So there's some things that would have been in his personality already on why that guilt would weigh on him so much. But yeah, he is driven by guilt in a way that others aren't. Even with Batman, it's like he had part of him that felt as that wished that he constantly had this childhood fantasy that he could have somehow been the person who could have kept that mugger from killing his parents. However, he had no real reason to feel guilt. Beyond that, he was an 8-year-old. And of course, survivor guilt does not have to be completely logical. In Peter's case, he feels more strongly that guilt in particular, and not just the loss, not just the guilt for surviving when other people didn't, because that's Bruce Wayne's issue more. Peter was not there when Uncle Ben died. He feels overwhelmingly the guilt of Uncle Ben's death, and that repeatedly drives him. It's not the only thing that drives him. The desire to do right for people, the desire to do the good thing. We've talked about this with John Semper Jr., producer, showrunner of the Spider-Man the Animated Series. And he was saying, yeah, the guilt was in there, but they didn't bring that up much during his run.
No, they did not. Yeah, I think in the animated series of the 90s, it was brought up maybe 3-4 times.
Yeah, it barely came up.
That was towards the ending seasons.
And Semper felt it's like that for their take, yeah, it was there, but it was not the main thing. That mainly Peter had this responsibility. He was doing the right thing because it was the right thing to do. Where our question was, who's the most neurotic superhero? And Danny Fingeroth always jokes, spoiler alert, it's Spider-Man. But John disagreed. He said, no, Batman's way more messed up.
Wow. Another major thing you explore in the psychiatry of Spider-Man is Rogues Gallery.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'll bring up my favorite Spider-Man villain, which is also my favorite Daredevil villain, the Kingpin.
Oh, yes.
What is is he a victim of his own doing or a victim of circumstance?
We don't talk about Kingpin much in the Spider-Man book because we had talked about him at greater length in the book, in a different book, Daredevil Psychology, The Devil You Know. Of course, he's originally a Spider-Man villain, and it's just we associate him so strongly with Daredevil because of what Frank Miller did with the Kingpin in 2 different runs. He made Kingpin so essential to making Daredevil himself more interesting. Kingpin does not do that for Spider-Man. Spider-Man is such a rich rogues gallery, where Daredevil had his enemies, but they did not have that variety and that depth of character that Spider-Man's enemies had. So Kingpin does not lend himself to defining Spider-Man's reality in the way that he does to defining Daredevil's reality.
Okay. Like I said, I modeled some of my adult life after Wilson Fisk, especially when it comes to my blindness skill training.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I wanted to give up, I thought of just Matt Murdock and or Wilson Fisk.
Yeah, Matt Murdock he's driven by guilt too. And he was younger than Peter Parker, but he has the guilt of knowing that his dad made the choice to stand up to gangsters and got himself killed because he wanted to be a better role model for Matt. And that's a good thing in and of himself. It's like that motivation. But, so Matt's guilt, Matt does feel that his feelings and his actions motivated his dad to win that fight, which the monsters killed him over, which does have a causal relationship. But Matt didn't actually do anything wrong. Peter, on the other hand, he passively, it's like through inaction, committed the great bystander crime of allowing something terrible to happen. So Matt Murdock and Peter Parker, they have different kinds of guilt driving them both. And as another thing that Miller did, although Miller was not the one who finally decided that Matt Murdock must be Catholic. I think that was Tony Isabella. But
really, because I know Frank Miller, iconically takes credit for the Catholic aspect of Daredevil to some degree.
Miller was the first to play it up big. He was not the one who made Matt Catholic, but he was the first one to make it an important part of the story.
Okay. You know, I want to know my second favorite Spider-Man villain is Mysterio.
Mysterio is an interesting one of this being this special effects guy who in one of the earlier Spider-Man stories, not Mysterio's first appearance, but in one early one when he pretended to be a psychiatrist, as a way to try to make Spider-Man doubt his own sanity and trick Spider-Man into revealing his identity, which he almost did before J. Jonah Jameson intruded in the room. That also was Mysterio played on Peter Parker's own fears of losing control. Mysterio also gave Peter Parker a bad experience with a supposed psychiatrist. And if he goes like, well, Peter Parker might be happy if he would get some therapy the way the character Cindy Moon does, but what happens with a therapist in his life? One is actually Mysterio in disguise. Another one later on, Bart Hamilton, learns things from Harry and becomes the third Green Goblin. So
Yep.
Spider-Man does not have good experience with therapists.
No, he does not. Or anyone with the name Doctor in it, it does not give him a good experience.
No, in Gotham City and Marvel. Yeah, it's
if you're in Gotham or if you're in Spider-Man's world, if you see the word Doctor, run for the hills.
yes. Yeah, whether they're real doctors of any kind, like Doctor Strange or Doctor Doom, or just people pretending to be doctors.
Yes. Who do you think out of Norman Osborn or Eddie Brock has the more severe psychosis?
Well, if we go into the literal meaning of the word psychosis, it has to be Norman Osborn because he hallucinates sometimes. For it to be psychotic, you're grossly out of touch with reality, which means that you're hallucinating or you're delusional. Like you're having hallucinations or beliefs that are out of touch with reality. And for all Eddie Brock's emotional problems, when he hears Venom talking, he's not hallucinating that. Venom really is talking to him. And when Norman Osborn hears the Goblin speaking to him from the mirror, this is a psychotic experience.
Okay. Like I said, is there a reason why you think Venom has gotten such a raw deal when it comes to being portrayed in other media?
Well, we haven't seen. There's so many things with Venom in the comics. There's such this variety of Venom. It's like we get him in Spider-Man 3, in which there's so much of Venom's history and the relationship between Peter and Venom and Eddie that's just missing, that it's just a really incomplete piece of a story. And then the other end, which I love the Venom movies. They're fun. They are so much fun. I didn't watch them for a while, and when I finally did, especially the second one, when I finally watched them, I was so glad I did. It's now, of course, you go, okay, we're missing. We're totally missing the Peter Parker part of the history here, and Eddie is a much nicer, better person in those movies, and so there are so many things in the comics that people who've only seen these movies don't know about Venom and are missing out from Venom, and it can be a difficult. It's like, how do you find this one who has this kind of complicated history and depict it well in just a movie? A TV series or even a cartoon can be the better opportunity to play this out over time than in just a movie or two.
Definitely. J. Jonah Jameson, what do you think is his driving force within the world of Spider-Man?
It came up in an early issue, where he's just standing there talking to himself, so thinking out loud, and he acknowledged that the main thing was sheer envy. He envied Spider-Man for the power. He envied Spider-Man for being able to do what he does. Overwhelmingly, in the comics, in the Stan Lee, Steve Ditko era, it was outright acknowledged that envy was what drove Jonah. Yeah, and then it becomes an escalation of commitment. When you've said something publicly, when you've attacked somebody publicly, you don't back down from it easily. And so that becomes worse over time. Of course, in recent years, it's completely different because finally Jonah knows that Pete is Spider-Man. Spoiler alert from 7 years ago or whichever it is.
Yeah, it's almost 8 years ago now, I think.
Something like that, yeah. But and Jonah, sometimes he's trying so hard to help Pete and make up for past things, and sometimes he gets mad at Pete again. But
I actually think in the last 20 years, that was probably one of the greatest developments they did within the Spider-Man world.
I think so.
Finally letting JJ know the man behind the mask.
Although having Aunt May find out was interesting for a while, but then they told the stories that they could tell with that, and then they did their Brand New Day, which it doesn't.
Yeah, I still think that would have been an interesting thing with Aunt May if editorial and corporate didn't backtrack it.
Yeah, Aunt May got more interesting once she knew. And there's some really good conversations that she had with Peter about how she'd had guilt over Ben's death. That that he never knew, because this is J. Michael Straczynski writing that, but she had felt guilt about Ben's death and had never known that Pete felt guilt over it. And after all this time, after all of these years, they could finally talk. And that's very real. There are people who have different things they've gone through, each carrying different weights, each carrying different guilt or fears or worries or bad experiences, that when the day finally comes that they open and talk to each other, it takes away. It's like, oh, you went through that too? And it takes a weight off some people.
That is amazing.
Now, in the ultimate version, Aunt May found out, and they didn't ever backtrack on that. But in mainstream Earth 616 Spider-Man, they undid it.
Of course, he makes the deal with the devil. The devil makes everyone forget. And the less we say about that whole era of Spider-Man, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. Who do you think was the one true love?
Mary Jane.
Gwen and her Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. He had more time to get to know
Mary
Mary Jane.
Stop.
It was a more mature relationship with Mary Jane. It wasn't just the girl he idolized. They never depicted Gwen with enough depth. They never depicted Gwen with her own life, her own personality. Everything about Gwen was always written, in relationship to Peter or her dad. That was part of why it's like Stan got to having more and more trouble finding ways to make Gwen interesting. Whereas years later, Ultimate Spider-Man made Gwen really interesting, and other things that have popped up. Gwen has been far more interesting in the last 20 or so years than she was ever in her original time.
Oh, exactly. And I think more now, especially with the popularity of the two Spider-Verse movies, Spider-Gwen.
The two Spider-Verse movies, the first Andrew Garfield movie was when the public so many people in the public discovered Gwen for the first time, and they really liked Gwen in that first Garfield movie.
I have to go back and rewatch that. I haven't seen it since it came out.
Oh, and a lot of people liked the Gwen parts in the second Garfield movie. It was just such a mix of different things.
That was a movie?
It was a hodgepodge of assembled pieces strung together within the same film.
Yeah, pretty much. And I thought they wanted that way to try to make Electro a little too sympathetic at times.
Yeah, it's honestly the best things that movie accomplished was that it set up the really interesting things that happened with Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in No Way Home.
Yeah, that is very true. Is the book on Audible by chance?
No.
Or was any of your body of work from your psychiatry books Batman or Daredevil?
Over half of the books are in audiobook form. Batman is, Star Wars, Over half of my books are, but some of them are not, and Spider-Man's not yet now.
Okay. That's the reason if I'm a little, if I seem a little unprepared, is because I did not receive my review copy yet.
Oh well, it could have. Okay.
So I'm really looking. With a print copy, I had my reader read it to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just easier for you know to go for the Audible version.
Oh, definitely. It's like because you've got human beings deciding how to read it, and the people who read the books, they tend to be very good. They're experienced as the readers on these books. Um, that's what it's an interesting thing to me when I am hearing the audiobook version of one of my books, and I'm hearing my own thoughts read through somebody else's voice. And but although it's not as much the voice as the rhythm. The rhythm of the way they're saying it's like it's perfectly fine. It's just it's not the rhythm of the way I wrote it in my head.
Oh wow. Uh, where can the big book be purchased? Both online and in the physical brick and mortar.
The Barnes and Noble tends to carry these books more heavily than other stores, but just about any brick and mortar store would have it while it's new. Barnes and Noble has been really good about carrying all these books online. They're available at every online source, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever fine and not so fine books are sold.
Awesome. Where can my audience find you online?
I'm easy to find. You look for Travis Langley. I'm the one you're going to find. But I'm one of the 10 most followed psychologists on Twitter. Although honestly, the best way to just have a discussion is through Facebook.
Beautiful. I thank you for your time and I thank you for your body of work.
Oh, well, thank you much.
All right, great. You have a great night, sir.
You too.
All right. Well, everyone, that wraps up another episode of Awesome Sauce Radio. I'd like to thank Travis Langley. Check out all his psychiatry books: Psychiatry of Batman, Daredevil, The Devil You Know, Spider-Man. Definitely cannot wait to check out more of his work. Check out Amethyst Pearl. Just Google her. She's amazing. Next time you can find me, it will be tomorrow night when I hang out with Captain Mega and we bring back Calamity Collectibles to the mic at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then this Thursday, JZ and I will be recording a special episode for future airing with a special mystery guest. And then I'll be on Whatnot. Remember, we don't decide to have a vision. It's not what happens to you. It's what you do about it. Chase your dreams. You just not catch them. Keep one foot in the gutter, one hand in the gold. Too hot to handle, too cold to hold. Be bold. Chase your dreams. You're going to catch them. Remember, the most difficult step is the first step. You take the first step, take baby steps. You ask, you believe. This is motherfucking America, son. Where the streets are paved with gold, motherfuckers. So go get your gold today, yo. Want to thank Exotica Expo, www.exoticaexpo.com, Big Apple Comic Con, BigAppleCC.com, Bad Dragon, bad-dragon.com, Comics Exposure. There's still just that's just a friend shout out. They're going to be joining the official sponsorship team soon. That's all, folks. Blind on them out. Love you guys.